Hello, Taylor Elwood here with the Men's Mysteries podcast, and I thought that this week what I would record is how do you handle grief? Because I'm here sitting right now with this feeling of grief. It's a profound feeling of grief that is going through me, and it's a feeling of grief that it's come about because I chose to go on this. I chose to go on a date with somebody. I had met this person the other night, and in meeting this person, I thought, why not? I wasn't planning on going on a date. I've been holding off on dating, and it's kind of a spur of the moment thing. I'd actually even made an agreement with myself that I'd hold off on dating for a while. But I felt a connection, and I asked, and she said yes, and that was cool. And so we met up today, and we had brunch, and we talked for a while, and got to know each other, and it was one of the most intentional, authentic, honest conversations that I've ever had in my life with somebody. We ended up agreeing in the end that it wasn't quite a match, that there was a mismatch in a key area, and we were both okay with that. And I mean, I know I'll be friends with this person, but afterwards, I came home to work on some projects, and I realized I started to feel this deep sensation in my belly. I'm feeling it right now. That's one of the reasons I'm recording this right now, because I wanted to share this, because men, we've been taught not to feel grief. We've been taught to bury our sadness, to bury our sorrow, to bury all the emotions that aren't acceptable, but they are acceptable. They are so important, men. So I'm here sitting with this grief, and what am I grieving? I'm grieving for past relationships, for people that I used to be with, and that we went into these relationships with intentions that we were going to build a life together, and it didn't work out. Some of it was them, some of it was me, and I just feel this deep sense of grief for those relationships, and this deep sense of grief for those people, and this deep sense of grief for myself for not maybe being the person that I am now, not having the awareness, the integrity, the authenticity, and I'm still working on developing all these things, because this isn't something that you just get like that. You have to work for it. I felt just this deep, deep sense of sadness and grief and awareness of the cost of my own choices. How my choices had impacted those relationships and those people and impacted me. And I'm not saying that those people don't have their own burdens to bear around that. They do. And their own responsibilities. But my grief isn't for that, because I can't do anything. That's not my grief to carry. My grief is to carry is the grief that I feel in regards to my own choices and to the mistakes that I made, and the impact that those mistakes had, and the pain that was caused, the loss of trust, the other things that occurred. And how often do we give voice to that deep sense of grief that we carry within us and allow ourselves to express it? Because, man, I think that is one of the most important things that we could express. And when we don't express grief, when we hold on to grief because we think that we have to push it down, that we have to pretend it isn't there, And what we're actually doing is hurting ourselves, and we're hurting our relationships. We're hurting our connections with other people. And this isn't even, the grief that I'm feeling isn't even just grief around romantic relationships. It's grief around friendships that I've lost. It's grief around family that I've lost. It's grief. It's grief around the way that I've shown up in life sometimes. And this isn't a beating up. It's not me beating up on myself out of a sense of shame or guilt. It's, if anything, it's just an honest, holy sharing and awakening of, here's this grief that I feel. This raw grief that I feel in a very real way. And I'm allowing myself to have that grief, to hold space with that grief, to be present with that grief. And I find it to be so transformative and transmutative. Yes, I'm sad right now. Yes, I'm crying as I'm talking here to you, sharing this experience, this very human experience that I'm having right now. Yeah, really, what I feel is a profound sense of depth and gratitude that here I am feeling this grief. Here I am feeling this sadness, knowing that it's raw and it's real and it's relational, that I'm giving myself the space to grieve for myself, to grieve for the parts of myself that I have not listened to or honored or been aware of. To grieve for the people that I've hurt, to grieve for the relationships that didn't work out, to grieve for the other things that happened, and to grieve also for the pain that I've experienced, the hurt that I received, and to allow this grief, this holy, holy, powerful grief, to flow through. There's a book that I'm reading right now. It's I'm going to go get it real quick, actually. It's Francis Weller's Wild Edge of Grief. And or The Wild Edge of Sorrow. He talks about, this is the book right here. He talks about the 5 gates of grief. There's everything we love we will lose, and that's definitely where I'm at right now with this particular grief. The places that have not known love. Let's see here. Oh, sorry, flipping through this because I'm trying to find the other ones. There's 5 of these suckers. There's ancestral grief. What we expected and did not receive. Yeah. And the sorrows of the world. And really, I've been reading this book since the beginning of October, and I've sat with each of these griefs to some degree or another, and I think today it just really hit me. Here it had this extremely, what I would consider to be an extremely healthy interaction with somebody. A very real, honest interaction with somebody where we talked and we shared, and it was just a profound realness to it. Here's where I'm at, and recognizing, something, and allowing that experience to be a transmutative experience. Like, I'm not sad really per se that things didn't work out. I mean, I've just started to get to know this person. We'll end up being great friends. I've no doubt. I mean, it wasn't sadness about, it wasn't a feeling of rejection. It was rather, this grief is rather just like, it's an acknowledgement of like, wow, I had this really healthy conversation, and how how I wish I could have had this kind of conversation earlier in my life. Because here I am at 48, and it's taken me this long to have that kind of a healthy interaction. On my end of it. I'm not speaking to anyone else because, again, that's their own experiences. But for me, this is my experience. This is where I'm at. And this is why it's so important for us to learn how to sit with grief, because sometimes what we're grieving are realizations that we have about ourselves or about our past, our relationships, or things like that need to be acknowledged and haven't been acknowledged. Because so often we push that sorrow down. We push that grief down. Your grief is a form of medicine. It's a form of recognition. It's a form of liberation. In the Sovereign's Code, which is a code of conduct and behavior that I'm developing, one of the principal values is freedom. That I live my life, according, on my own terms. That I show up authentically and real. How can we do that if we don't allow ourselves to feel grief? How can we do that if we don't allow ourselves to feel the sorrow that we've held on to in our lives for so long? I don't pretend to think that I have all the answers on that one, because I don't, but I do know that the answer I have for myself today is that I'm really glad I'm feeling this sense of grief. I'm glad that this happened. I feel like I've taken yet another healing step on my own journey around the work that I'm doing right now in my life, and it has felt and feels really liberating. Yes, I feel sad. Yes, I feel sorrow. Yes, I feel grief for all these things, and I also feel free. Free, because I'm not holding on to this experience that isn't real. Otherwise, that I'm not pretending that I'm happy all the time, that I'm not pretending that everything's okay, because sometimes it isn't. That I'm not pretending that, I've gone through life and I've been that wonderful angel person, because, sometimes I haven't been. Sometimes I've made some choices that have been hurtful to myself and to other people. And I know it. And the sorrow that I feel, it's real. Because it's not just about me. It's not just about them. It's about everything together. And this is part of the process that we men need to do around our own healing. We need to learn to grieve. We need to learn to let loose and cry and allow the tears to come welling out of the depths of our souls, to allow ourselves to wail, allow ourselves to fully release all that emotion that we've kept locked up inside of us. Release it. So I'm grateful because today I've had this really transmutative experience that I didn't expect to have. I mean, it wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go out there and meet somebody and we're going to connect and then I'm going to feel this way afterwards. No. I'm grateful because it feels like another step on my healing journey. Like there's this part of me that, well, I'm sad. There's also this part of me that feels like it feels this liberation, this joy. And there's an interesting thing. How can you hold joy and sorrow at the same time? And yet there I am. I am holding joy and sorrow at the same time today. Knowing that it's real. Knowing that what I'm feeling is just the most honest expression of myself. For myself. With myself. feeling parts of me just release a level of tension that I didn't even, and pressure that I didn't even realize was there. Yet here it is. Men, it is okay to grieve. It is more than okay. It is important to grieve. Let your grief out. If you need help with that, reach out to me, because I definitely want to help you with this journey, the same journey that I'm on. This is how we release and recognize our truest and deepest selves.